Okay, so you guys should have just finished activity 1, the zero synthesis, and you saw a video where they helped you solve to find the intercepts. So all I'm going to do is review that with you just to make sure you're clear on how to do that. So if you look at number 1, it says, what are the intercepts? So if you notice, they already factored the quadratic for you. So in order to find the intercepts, if you looked in the video, is all you have to do is set each of the factors equal to 0 and solve. So I'll do a plus 1 equals 0. And remember, this is just a one-step equation. To get a by itself, you just subtract 1 on both sides. So I have a equals negative 1. That's the first intercept. So it intercepts the x-axis at negative 1. And then we have to do the same thing for the other factor. A plus 2 equals 0. To get a by itself, we subtract 2 on both sides. So we end up with a equals negative 2. So those are our two answers. Now, when you're online and you're inputting your answers into the computer, it'll give you certain instructions on how to enter. So if you look here, it says, enter answers where the first number is greater than the second number. So what does that mean? If we look here, our answers are negative 1 and negative 2. The first answer that you input into the computer has to be the larger of the two numbers. So if we have negative 1 and negative 2, of course, negative 1 will be our first answer, and the second answer would be negative 2. It's just important when you're writing it in the computer, the way how it's designed is that you have to put the greater of the two numbers first. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the practice quiz. Okay, number 2, it says, where are the x-intercepts? Here's number 2. I just wanted to do another one because if you look in this case right here, it's not just k plus 5, it's 4k plus 5, so you're going to have to do an extra step. So we have 4k plus 5 equals 0. And in this case, we have a two-step equation we have to solve. So if you look here, we want to get rid of the 5. So we minus 5 on both sides, of course. Once we do that, we're left with 4k equals negative 5. And then to get k by itself, we have to divide both sides by 4. So right here we have k equals negative 5/4. Or if you use your calculator, you got negative 1 and 1/4. All right, so now we have to solve the other one. We have k plus 1 equals 0. And to get that by itself, I would subtract 1 on both sides. So we have k equals negative 1. So now you have a negative 1 and a negative 1 and 1/4. Of course, you guys know that negative 1 is larger than negative 1 and 1/4. So when we put our answers into the computer, the negative 1 goes in the first one. And then I would just leave it as the improper fraction, negative 5/4. That goes in for the second answer. All right. Now, the last problem, the directions seem like they're different, but it's asking the same thing. It says solve to determine the solutions. The solutions and the x-intercepts are the same thing. But if you notice in this quadratic equation here, they did not factor it. So yes, we do have to go back to factoring, which was what we did before we left for online learning. So in order to do this, the first thing we need to do is set this equal to 0. But there's a negative 5 there. So to make negative 5 0, all we would do is add 5 to both sides. Once I do that, I'm going to end up with x squared minus 11x. 19 plus 5 is 24. And now we have 0. So hopefully you guys remember how to factor. If not, I'm going to remind you. We have A, B, and C. Remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a is the number in front of the x squared. In this case, it's 1. The b is the number in front of the x. In this case, it's negative 11. And the c is the number that has no variable, and that's 24. So you guys remember this. We made our little table. We have to find the factors of a times c. So in this case, 1 times 24, which of course is 24. that add up to b. In our case here, b is negative 11. So we have to find the factors of 24 that add up to negative 11. And negative 3 times negative 8 is a positive 24. And a negative 3 plus a negative 8 equals negative 11. So I found my factors. They're negative 3 and negative 8. And if you guys remember, now that we found them, x minus 3, that's the negative 3, and x minus 8, that's the negative 8, equals 0. So now look what happened. We factored it. Now we can do what we did for problems number 1 and 2. All we have to do is set each of these factors equal to 0. So I'm going to do x minus 3. So now we know x equals 3. Okay? And then I have to do the same thing to the other side, the other factor, x minus 8 equals 0. I add 8 to both sides. So x equals 8. Now, just like I told you on the computer, they're going to tell you to input the larger answer first. So in this case, we have an 8 and a 3. The larger answer is 8. That goes in the first box. And 3, that goes into the second box. So now you guys are prepared to take the factoring practice. Good luck. If you have any questions, please ask.